I'm only here so I don't get fined. Good to have you with us. I'm Dan McDermott. This is Google Plus Week, an unofficial look at the world's coolest social layer network ecosystem. Let's go to our panel, introduce them. We have Mr. Kevin Bryan. Welcome, Kevin, in Atlanta, Georgia. Future, do you live in the right section of town? Are you on the right side of the tracks that's going to get fiber?
I am not on the exact right side of the tracks, no, but I'm close to people who are, so I'll be hitting up all my friends and checking their addresses, and when I find the right address, I'll be moving into their basement, wherever that is.
Or aiming a microwave satellite dish or something. Real quick, because Google Fiber is coming to, just quick question on that. What are you most excited to do? Obviously, Facebook and Twitter and Google Plus, you can do fine with what you have, but what are you like, oh man, I can't wait to get it for what?
I am really looking forward to any kind of application that can send high quality, fast video, either video conferencing or 4K something. Obviously, not on the screens that I have now, but any kind of fast video, anything, maybe editing video in the cloud, something like that. If this is available, then I'd be able to do something like that.
Collaborative cloud-based video editing is, in my opinion, the holy grail. But really, Alan, welcome. And we don't even know what they're going to come up with yet, right? The best stuff, we didn't really envision
Correct.
YouTube when it was dial-up. It wouldn't have been possible.
Right. Once you add these big pipes, then the applications will come out, and people will definitely.
No. Everyone knows that that's not true. Everyone. I mean, just ask Comcast. They'll tell you don't need it. Nobody needs it, and we'll be covering that later on in this show.
And the Slowskis, they're fairly funny turtles that they had in the Comcast commercials from several years ago, actually were prognosticators, if you will. But yeah, we will be discussing Tom Wheeler trolling the cable companies about that issue. And I don't know why that's a partisan issue. Shouldn't be. Should be common sense. Okay, so our first topic here is Google made 14.5 billion gross before payments for ads. Analysts were expecting 14.7 billion instead of the 14.5 billion. So the headline is Google revenue hurt by rising dollar. But their revenue was down after everything was said and done. I think the last we heard was that their revenue was down
No,
because
the revenue was up.
it's not up as much as they thought.
Over this time last year.
So that doesn't suck.
Well, except that everyone expected it to be up more than that.
Okay. So it's like when the government cuts, they're not really cutting, it's just less growth.
I'm surprised they didn't say any problems with the rise with patents, because that still is a bit of a drag on their income as well. The issue hasn't completely gone away, is what I'm saying.
It's all the typical stuff we're used to, billions of dollars, and but yeah, the dollar impacts. They're a worldwide company. Any company that's selling stuff overseas, what little money they actually bring back to the U.S. is apparently impacted by the exchange rates. Anything else on Google? I'd settle for 14.5 bill.
I think the interesting number that I saw here is how much Google is spending on R&D compared to other companies. Google's spending a tremendous amount on research and development. They're spending a tremendous amount on building up new data centers. So it's clear that they're planning for the future, and that scares investors a bit. But It's good for the long haul. And it's also notable that other companies in their peer group are doing the same thing.
I totally agree. It's nice to see Google do some of the stuff that Bell Labs used to do, on such a big scale, and just try and aim. It's really easy to say the catchphrase moonshot, but go for it. It gets people excited. It gets people excited on wanting to work there. It gets people excited and looking at your products. It's good for their long term.
Also,
I think the final point's the most important. It's good for the long term, because otherwise you turn into an AT&T or an IBM, which are doing nothing.
Plus, it's important to note only rich companies can do this, right, Alan?
What was that, Dan?
Only rich companies have the luxury of doing this. Your Apples, your Amazon. Of course, Apple and Google are cash machines. Amazon basically breaks even, but I think Bezos spends a lot of money on research. But only these, but he doesn't have the results.
I mean, the article that we were listed at showed that Amazon is spending proportionally far less.
They have less to spend.
Well, that may be true, but again, it turns into what's the long-term game plan. If your long-term game plan is to make money, then you need to be investing some of that money in your long-term wealth. Bell Labs did that. That's why it's part of why they kept ahead for so long. IBM did that. That's why they were king of the hill for so long. When they stopped doing that is about when they went into decline.
I remember someone made the observation that Jeff Bezos has been running a unprofitable company for 20 years. He's very patient, which made him the perfect candidate to buy the Washington Post. So
the weird part about all this is that Microsoft never gets brought up, because Microsoft still does a lot of stuff in their research. It's just that they've turned that into some kind of closed circle where nothing really gets out, and it's to me that's the biggest shame.
That's not true,
of Microsoft.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff that does come out of Microsoft's research lab that turns into a consumer product. That's what the Kinect is.
Yes, okay, the Kinect came out of there, but there's a fair number of projects that just never made it out. I think if we looked at the products that they work on, as opposed to what gets out, I would bet anything it's a much lower percentage than at other companies. They just work on a lot of stuff that just never makes it out. You are right, some does make it out.
I mean, compare that, though, with, say, Xerox, that's had a research lab, and it used to be a really good research lab, that produced approximately zero for decades?
Yeah, but now they're gone, essentially. I mean,
Xerox PARC still exists. Xerox still exists. But almost everything that ever came out of PARC went off to an independent company because Xerox never developed any of it.
Yeah, when I say they're gone, I mean they're not really relevant anymore. I mean that just gets frustrating to me. I guess that's really what I'm saying. I just get frustrated when I see exciting new products and they just never end up going anywhere. That's all. But yeah, you are right about Xerox. I mean, they are still there, but I wish they pushed out more, and I wish Microsoft pushed a higher percentage out. I guess that's all I mean to say. Even what would be really nice if they could make a Microsoft, store experience or just a display experience, like a Flash store, and then just remind people that they're still there, because Microsoft is still in a realm where they could be relevant, and that's the biggest thing. That they're not in the Xerox position where they're considered irrelevant. Microsoft is still relevant, and I wish they would be more exciting about some of the stuff they're doing. Just show people what they're doing. Just tell people about what they're doing.
Well, and I think they are, and I think they have been. I mean, just today we're seeing everyone is talking about how Microsoft's Gmail client is better than Google's Gmail client. So we're seeing reminders like that coming out on at least a weekly or at least a monthly, if not a weekly basis sometimes.
Wasn't there something that the best? I think The Verge said the best Gmail client out there is Microsoft's on the iPhone.
Did I not just say that?
But I don't think you mentioned it was on the iPhone. You were talking about the Windows Phone.
My understanding is it's not for the
Not-
Windows Phone. It's for the iPhone and for Android.
I think they said that Microsoft's Hotmail client, which does Gmail on the iPhone, is the best Gmail client out there, according to according to one writer for The Verge. I think it was The Verge.
Yes.
But I'm glad that they're innovating. Nobody wants their shitty Windows Phone.
Well, you know, I don't make fun of Windows phones anymore. I mean,
Really?
I wouldn't want to get one, but I stopped bashing on those phones. I actually know someone now who has a Windows phone, and I love the pictures that it takes. The applications work really well. I mean, the only problem is that it doesn't have the hip new applications that a lot of people would want to use. But as a phone, it works great.
And I'm not saying that it sucks. I'm saying nobody's buying them. That the sales are really
Yeah.
low, because I have a sales rep, and I had a friend who actually died, and both of them love their Windows phone. It's the only two I've seen in the wild, but they both like, I love it. I wouldn't want one of those crappy Android or iPhone. They said. I said,
Unfortunately, yeah, someone who had a Windows phone and then they died.
So both Windows Phone users are very happy. Anything else on Google before we go to the elephant in the room?
Nope.
Go ahead.
All right, so Apple had a fine quarter as well. Apple, wow. I'm looking for the gross number here, Alan. I'm trying to find it. I don't see it. It is, I know they sold, I'm looking for the gross revenue to compare with Google. But I guess their profit was $18 billion, which I think is the most profit any company has ever made in a quarter in the history of the world.
Yep.
So they sold 74.5 million iPhones. I don't know if they broke it up between the 6 and the 6 Plus. And I assume some of these are 5, because you can still buy the 5S. I saw in Sprint, you can still buy the 5S and the 5C, I think. Obviously, they might just be blowing out inventory, but I'm sure that still counts, I would guess.
The big story in all of this, though, is that their sales in China are doing incredibly well. Better than anybody expected.
That was 16 billion or something. What was that?
I don't remember the exact number, but
It was up 70% from the same period a year ago. The sales were $16.1 billion, which is great. I mean, they make the things.
And they only have 4 stores in China. That's the part that really blows you away when you think about the population. You only have 4 stores.
Can you imagine
and
the
that's how much
freaking
you're
line?
clearing? Oh wow! That
Okay, you're number 4 million. Literally, if they only sold them in stores, it would be 4 million per store.
But this does underline where Apple's main cash cow is, and it is still the iPhone. That is where they get by far the most amount of their profits, more than the iPad, and iPod Touch and all those other things. It's still the iPhone that's king, and they're still killing it in terms of build quality. Forget about Bendgate. People don't care.
It's the best camera in a phone, period, right?
Absolutely. Other phones are getting closer, but it's still number one. That's the one thing that really frustrates me more than anything else about Android, that they don't take cameras super seriously.
Cadeas, I was talking to him after the Android show, which is every Monday at 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific. And he tests everything. He gets every gadget, right? He loves Android. That's his preference. In fact, he had an iPhone 128 gig, and he gave it to his mom, and then she gave her other iPhone to her grandma. And he said he still prefers Android, but he tests them and writes apps and stuff. But he said that he says the camera, with the exception of depth of field, that the camera in the iPhone 6 would rival the camera, my $1,200 NEX7 camera. Is that outlandish? With the exception of depth of field, which none of these sensors have. Do you agree with that?
Wow. I don't know that I would.
it's not a
I'm
sensor issue, it's a lens issue.
Okay.
Or that is, anyway. But
Because the
I don't
APS-C
know,
sensor gives you great depth of field, but it only uses that whole sensor when it's doing a still. My NEX7.
sensor doesn't have anything to do with depth of field.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry.
That's it sounds a bit of an exaggeration, but you know, at a certain level, if you're just showing pictures on the computer and you're not doing any processing after the fact, it might be pretty close.
I'm sure they're equal on Facebook, you know,
Yeah,
which is how probably most pictures are consumed, I would guess, today. Certainly, most pictures that consumers would take with a phone, absolutely, they'd be shared on Facebook more than anywhere else. But anything else on Apple? I mean, obviously they hit it out of the ballpark.
they're killing it.
I think the other interesting number there is that their iPad sales are continuing to drop like a rock.
You think that's because of the 6 Plus?
I think it's probably a combination of the 6 Plus and Chromebooks. There just isn't the need for tablets that anyone sees anymore.
I still prefer my Nexus 7 if I'm in bed and I'm reading now from the Google app where I used to use Flipboard, reading just stories until I fall asleep. I find the Nexus 7 is better, but that's really the only time I use it. That and on the can.
I have been struggling since the beginning of tablets to figure out where exactly I could use it in my life. And I have 2 tablets at this point. One that crazy Asus triple E pad slider. I have that tablet, and I also have a Nexus 7. And I keep trying to figure out where to use it. And the slider is in its case, and it's been there for probably a year plus now. And the Nexus 7, I let my mom use that one. And
see, I've assembled
struggle.
a kit, Cadeas. I'm sorry, Kevin. I've assembled a kit. This is all you need for emergency break in emergency. I posted I said, I accidentally forgot to bring my Nexus 7 to the can. This wallpapered in here. Interesting. But that's my emergency kit I always have handy.
And then since I got my phone, now it's almost completely irrelevant because now my phone's almost as big as the tablet now. I have the Sony Xperia Z Ultra, the 6.44-inch screen. I'm missing nothing.
Yeah,
anymore.
there's no reason. That's only a
There's
half-inch
now-
difference.
Now there's really no difference.
There's not a huge difference from mine, which is 5.5, I think, right? My Note 2 versus 7. That's a significant difference, but the Note 2 is fine in a pinch. I just as soon leave it on the charger because I don't get all the notifications on my Nexus 7. Because when you're in bed and you're reading, you really don't want you're trying to crash, right? I don't want everything punching me in the face at that point. Anything
Yeah.
else on Apple?
No.
Okay. All right, next up on our exciting program. Okay, this is an Alan topic du jour. The Hangouts Media Effects API. I don't even know if I'm phrasing this correctly. Hangouts Media Effects API rolled out to Google Plus Developer Channel. So obviously, Alan, you are a fan of APIs.
I'm a big fan of APIs.
And a critic of the dearth of them on Google Plus. So you got some toys here. Tell us about this.
So you might remember, I guess this goes back now about a year and a half or so. You'd be able to, how we're able in Hangouts to do things like, funny effects like brighten our videos or change it to black and white or soften some of the focus or do some other enhancements to it. You may remember all of those things. And, after playing with them for a few minutes, everyone stopped caring. Well, they've now made an API for that. And so that means that any programmer who develops Hangout apps can insert all of those effects. And while they were at it, they did a lot of other things as well. So the new Effects API lets you do those effects, but also lets you do a lot more. And Gerwin has just started playing around with some of them. And what you can do with them is really kind of fascinating. So you can do things like have your Hangout app crop portions of the video, live, direct, in real time. You can do other color manipulation, so you can add a red filter or a blue filter. And these take effect in the video stream real time. And we've just begun to play around with what it can do, but it also includes things like manipulating the video filter or manipulating the video stream to move portions of the frame around, do face detection and blur out faces, and just faces. So I think there's some exciting things going on with this API that really start making it so you can do some really professional-looking things directly live. And that'll be really cool when we get them working.
Question, Alan, on that. I've noticed, for example, with the, and they have proven popular, these effects, like the hats and the glasses stuff. I don't see them now, but they, new users like them, and kids probably like them, and, anybody wants to have fun, I guess. But the black and white effects on the video and the other effects you can do, I think all three of us just run clean video. I've noticed, like when Oleg comes in sometimes, there's a latency enhancement when he's using an effect. And I've seen that with others that I don't see with the clean video. Is that hardware on his end, or his internet connection, or a back-end issue on Google's part? And are they aware of this, and are they acknowledging this and doing something about it to make it more robust and snappy?
It's hardware. I mean, it's processing on your end, because that's where all of this video processing happens. And yeah, you're going to see where, on machines that are a little bit more ghetto, that trying to do these effects real time will cause some problems, will slow things down. And that's why we mostly run straight clean video. That said, I think as CPUs are able to handle it better, as they've moved towards using HTML5, using WebRTC for video processing in Chrome, we've seen performance improvements greatly improved. And I think we'll continue to see that. And, I think some of it's going to be mitigated by how well some of these effects work, what we can use them for, and, we'll see. I think it's always going to be a balancing act between performance and results, though.
Okay. Anything on the API, Kevin?
No, I think that covers it.
Okay. Got your name wrong earlier. I was doing my Bartlett impersonation. All right, next up. And if you want to see this document we're looking at here, it's right in the beginning of the thing. It's bit.ly GPW topics, if you want to follow along with us here. Okay, so next up, Google Earth Pro is now available for free. And I know that you just downloaded this. I think this is what the TV stations use, where you start out with the globe. Let's say you want to talk about Ebola in Monrovia, and you're doing a newscast, and you can start with the globe, and then it's that neat effect where I'm afraid to use any images on here and get pinged, but I've got a link below the video. So you were playing with this, Kevin, and what did you have a chance to play with it, or you just got it? And what are your thoughts, Alan? You probably played with this before. It was $400 a year. Now it's free, but you have to ask for a code to get in. That'll probably go away, I'm guessing. They're probably limiting, they're rolling it out slowly, right, for back-end issues, I'm guessing. Or they just haven't fixed that. What do you think, Kevin?
I got it today, and I've been playing around with it, and it is absolutely phenomenal at this one task, which is having a picture of the Earth and then zooming in on your house like you've never seen it before. And then you zoom in and you realize how important you are because you got to zoom in on your house because your house is more important than everyone else's. And then you zoom back out, and then you're kind of done.
So it's basically a Flappy board, it's Flappy map. It's like a one-trick.
The first application for Google Earth Pro is that you can zoom in on your house. And I would bet you anything that like 95% of the people who use it, that's the first thing that they do. They go from the big blue Earth, and they zoom in on their country, and then they zoom in on their state, and then they zoom in on their neighborhood, and then they zoom in on their house, and they think, oh wow, that's pretty amazing, and they put it away for a minute. But after that, I started playing around and looking at some of the applications, some of the places downtown in downtown Atlanta. And the amount of detail that they have in this thing is absolutely incredible. At first, I couldn't think about what I would use it for, but I started thinking about just looking at different places and seeing how they're set up. And what one application that I was thinking about was that if I'm reading a news story about a certain place, I can actually look at a map of that and then realize how that place is set up. And it's kind of it's really honestly it's fun to play with. You just go into different cities and you just look to see how they're set up. You understand how big Central Park is. You understand, looking at different landmarks. It's really at the beginning for if you're not a news organization, it's an incredible time suck, but it's a really fun time suck. Honestly, that's my biggest purpose right now, just playing around, looking at different places, and if you wanted to travel someplace or if you want to look at where some friend is living, you could just zoom in on that spot, and it's an incredible resource. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be doing with it, but I keep doing it for long periods of time. It's kind of like Minecraft, where you have this big world and you have no idea what to do with it, and so you just keep walking around all day long, and you start mining pieces of dirt and you pile them into different piles and you Minecraft. So that's what I do with this. I Minecraft on a Google Earth.
Let me do a couple comments here, and then we'll go to Alan. George Cozy, I'm watching this discussion about the relevance of Microsoft on my Windows 8 desktop. It looks pretty relevant to me. George Cozy also says, I'm trying to figure out this Apple phenomenon. Sure, they make nice products, but there is something else there. The only thing I can think of that could explain it is a comparison to the fashion industry. It's Louis Vuitton. A nice bag, but it's just a bag, isn't it? Boy, you would get disagreement from Craig Shipp and company. Alan, what do you think about... is this a big deal, the Google Earth thing? And is the quality of the actual... Like, when you looked at your house, is it any better than what it would be on traditional Google Earth? The consumer?
I haven't played with it yet. I defer to Kevin on this subject completely.
Kevin,
I will.
do you see a difference in quality? Could you do a quick check?
It is an absolutely phenomenal level of quality, just down to the trees, down to the actual buildings themselves. I've played around with Google Earth a little bit in the past, and I keep coming back, and every time they seem to have a little bit more detail. But what I'm seeing right now on Google Earth Pro is dramatically better than the stuff that I've been seeing on just the regular map satellite view. Dramatically. Everything is 3D. Everything, down to the parking lots. There's
is it dramatically better?
I keep saying it, but when you see it, I would recommend anyone who's watching just go ahead and sign up for one and take a look at it, and you'll see exactly what I'm saying, which is that the amount of detail that you're seeing on all of these places makes you feel like you're almost there. It's really, really good.
Well, that's cool. That's a bit of an endorsement.
Check it out.
All right, Google Earth Pro was $400 a year, right? Now it's free.
Correct.
So that's less. Wait, let me see here. 400 divided by 0. All right, cool, awesome. So there you go. More free stuff from Google. Wonder if any of the investors are mad they're giving it away. It's more expense with zero revenue because more usage. Okay, now YouTube now defaults to its HTML5 player on web browsers. Alan, can you explain what HTML5 is? And a lot of us have already switched, right? You had to manually switch before. Now it's automatic.
Probably. HTML5 is basically it's the language that web browsers use to display information. We've been using variants of HTML for well over a decade now. And HTML5 is the most recent version of it. One of the things that an HTML5 subspecification talked about is how to do video embedded in HTML itself. So previously we would rely on plugins to do this. So the most popular of which was a Flash plugin. Flash sucks. Let's be blunt here. Flash sucks. There is absolutely positively nothing good about Flash. It's proprietary, it's closed, it's restrictive, it's technologically nasty, it is security hole ridden. So a number of years back, the standards organizations behind the web tried to get together and come up with a standard for video through web browsers. And we're at a point where enough of the web browsers have adopted it that YouTube is using this for default when it can. And when it can't, it has to resort to things like Flash. But for the most part now, if you're using Chrome, Opera, Firefox, or Internet Explorer, then you're going to be using HTML5 if you're visiting YouTube. And that's just awesome, because that means that now everybody's using a good, solid standard and building off of that.
Question on that. I remember when they switched from, I'm not sure is what, they said WebRTC allowed us to do Hangouts without a plugin. So explain how those things
Same
are.
technology. WebRTC is basically the HTML5 video standard. WebRTC, however, really takes it one step more, because it's not just about video streaming, it's about video interaction, it's about multiple ways to connect. So WebRTC is essentially video streaming taken up a level. But that's all part of the same standards.
Any thoughts on, it's kind of a minor topic, but it's noteworthy. If people notice a difference, can you opt back out? If you have some, is there any reason you would?
I think you can, but no, there's no reason why you would.
There might be if you're using annotations. I was looking around to see how well HTML5 is handling annotations now. I know there was a problem with it in the past, and I keep reading that it's not 100% with annotations, but I think they've gotten it close enough that it's not a big problem anymore. So that would be the only reason to switch back at this point. Yeah, I mean, even if annotations don't work that well, on YouTube with HTML5, I'd put up with not seeing those anymore just because Flash is so bad. We just need to kill it with fire. It needs to go away for a long time now. So I'd put up with losing that.
But that's probably a temporary problem, right?
Oh yeah. It's definitely a temporary problem. It's just if it doesn't work right now, maybe some videos need those annotations on YouTube in order to understand what's going on. So it's a temporary glitch. They'll figure it out. Flash will die.
It's interesting because normally, as you know, Kevin, Google never rolls stuff out until it's 100%.
Google Plus is done. They don't need to do anything else.
It's complete. Yeah, it's perfect. Everyone's
nailed it.
Yeah, all my friends use it. Nailed it. Oh dear. Okay, so all right, next up is this privacy thing. Two things matter in Europe: cricket and privacy. So I'm not a fanatic about either.
Dan?
Yes, sir.
I can't believe you just said that.
I was joking.
Well, no, I can't believe you said that because honestly, in Europe, nobody gives a rat's ass about cricket.
Oh, it's a British and Indies thing?
It's British and British colonies only. What people care about in Europe is football.
Fair. I tried to understand cricket. I tried. I gave it the best.
Very simple. Cricket's an incredibly simple game. Someday we'll have to sit down for 3 days and watch a match.
Oh my God. It's only the same two teams.
It's also not at all relevant to this topic.
It's not entirely relevant?
Not even slightly.
All right, so we see here, who knew? All right, so Google settles with the UK's Information Commissioner and will change its privacy policy.
Dan, I swear, I read this article. It makes absolutely no sense.
That's why I was hoping to throw it to you.
Damn. I was hoping to throw it to you before you had the chance.
I mean,
I swear,
read
I read this, and it's full of legal gobbledygook.
It's seven things.
if the privacy policy is changing, it's totally not clear to me how it's going to change or why anyone would care. Certainly not from this article.
Yeah, it feels like it's in step 2 of a 90-step plan. They haven't gotten it to the point where they're actually going to summarize it for non-lawyers. Right now, this article is it's a lawyer article.
Well, what could be simpler though? Let's get real here. Carry out the steps set out in Annex 1 with regards to the accessibility and content of the privacy policy and associated web content by 30 June 2015, i.e. make it more accessible to ordinary consumers to see them understand.
Yeah, notice how that the agreement is not in any way understandable or accessible. Ensure that there is continued evaluation of the privacy impact of future changes to processing which might not be within the reasonable expectations of service users so that users are provided with prompt and adequate notice of such processing. What? Come on.
So I shouldn't have even added this.
No, you shouldn't have.
I wish they would... Here's what I really wish. I wish that they would... Here's okay. I'm sorry. I'm trying to summarize my thoughts as I'm talking. Every issue around Europe and its privacy policies and Google seems to be something like this, where it's lawyers fighting lawyers, and it doesn't seem to have much to do with what the consumers in those countries want. And so what I wish is that some of the articles that we see written about this stuff would bring a little bit more of what the actual users in Europe want to see, which is that, you know, some people are concerned about privacy issues from Google, but also in Europe, Google's a lot more popular than it is even here. You know, when it comes to search usage, it's actually higher in Europe than it is here. And so, to me, that tells me that the users in Europe are not really as concerned about these privacy issues as the ruling class of politicians are.
Okay.
I'm not entirely sure that's true, Kevin. Certainly, anecdotally, the Europeans I talk to, and most of them are Google fans, are very concerned about privacy. However, they think that Google tends to respect it better than many others do. I think what the other thing to point out in this case is, though, although we're talking about Europe, the article, the agreement is apparently only with the UK's information minister. So it's not even a European policy. It's a UK policy.
Yeah, okay, yeah, point taken, yeah.
And of any country that cares about privacy, the least, it's the UK. I mean, let's face it, when we're talking about privacy concerns, we're talking about Germany. The Germans are the ones who are most paranoid.
All right, speaking of Europe, I have a comment here from Captain Euro. I'd say that Panasonic, kind of mirroring what Kevin was saying, to a degree, I'd say that Panasonic's Lumix DMC CM1 is a better camera phone than the iPhone 6, but all phones are pretty bad compared to a regular camera. And as Alan pointed out, glass has a lot to do. The lens on the camera has a lot to do with the difference, but the sensor obviously matters. And they've got to cram these things. It's basically a phone that takes pictures, just like DSLR. They started out as a still camera that added a video feature, and it was every bit like that. It wasn't like really badass, but they've come a long way. So
I'm still as an aside, I'm still waiting for someone to just go crazy on Android and just make a phone with a huge camera that people would want to buy, like a mainstream one. I know there are some companies that have done that, but I'd love to see, like a Samsung or an HTC just go crazy and just go totally crazy and throw up some huge, like Microsoft, like on the Microsoft phone, just throw that on the back of a phone, but one of the mainstream ones.
But isn't that basically the Samsung NX? Or if Apple came out with a camera where you could have, what all of us want is, we want the ability with iOS or with Android, you want to have all those apps that are great for manipulating photographs and taking pictures and things, HDR, all that stuff. You want to be able to use all the latest apps. You also want to be able to use your fancy Nikon, Sony, or Canon camera. And there are some hybrids like that, like the Samsung NX. And Cadeas has one of those because he has everything. But I don't know that they've sold that well. And you'd think that the people who want that would be more inclined to get a big-ass camera with an iOS or Android back on it, as opposed to a ridiculously big phone which you couldn't fit in your pocket. But there hasn't.
Okay.
But it's like, I mean, it just hasn't sold. I don't think. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't. I've never seen an NX. I've never seen one of those smart cameras outside of Cadeas holding one up in one of our shows, and he loves his NX.
Yeah, I don't have a good answer for that.
I don't know
but,
what the demand is, but I think it's coming. You're going to see more and more smart features. First, you have like some Wi-Fi ability. When you get back, you can transfer your pictures. Then it's going to be, now it's probably at this stage, the apps are at the stage where like a smart TV's built-in Netflix app. It sucks, but it's semi-functional. And eventually you're going to see smart cameras. So to paraphrase Churchill, this is not the end or the beginning of the end. It is the end of the beginning. So there.
Yeah.
Anything
We'll
else
get
on
there.
this?
Picture. No.
Okay, so next up is oh my God, Tom Wheeler, my hero. I was reluctant. Were y'all reluctant about this guy in the beginning because he was a former cable TV lobbyist?
I
So
was
assumed
super skeptical.
Dan, tell the story.
Boy, were we wrong. I want to tell it my way, but I can't because Alan's mean. He's mean to
Yeah,
me.
but-
Okay, so here we
You
go.
The problem is you jumped into the middle of the story, assuming everyone knew what the hell you were talking about.
I'm ADHD. It was just a brief intro.
Let's lead
no
into it.
intro.
Anyway, so the Federal Communications Commission voted 3-2 along party lines. Again, why is this partisan? To change the definition of broadband to at least 25 megabits down and 3 megabytes up. The vote was no surprise given Tom Wheeler's Democratic majority. He put on a show to contrast what the internet service providers' marketing claims with their statements to the government. Let's parse out what they say in their lobbying with us and what they say when they're talking to consumers, said Wheeler, a former cable and wireless industry lobbyist himself. While Verizon told FCC that consumers are satisfied with 4 megabits down, 1 megabit per second up. Is that's spelled incorrectly, right? It should be a small m, megabits, not megabytes. Or is that correct? I don't know, but it is megabits, right? They're satisfied, and a higher benchmark would serve no purpose. They push consumers to buy much faster speeds, which cost more, Wheeler pointed out. In their marketing materials, Verizon says, while Fios provides a lot of speed for bandwidth-hungry devices, you'd be surprised how fast it goes. You can think of your household's internet connection like a pizza to be shared with your whole family. Some people are hungrier than others, and if too many friends show up, no one will get enough to be satisfied. I'm reminded of the Trading Places scene where they were trying to explain commodities to Eddie Murphy. This is what their website said. Wheeler continued, and then I'll throw it to Alan. 2525 is best for 1 to 3 devices at the same time. Great for surfing, email, online shopping, and social networking. Streaming 2 HD videos simultaneously. 50/50 is best for 3 to 5 devices. Much more speed for families or individuals. If you have true 50/50, you can do a hell of a lot more than 3 to 5 devices. So, and he goes on for all of them. AT&T and Sprint were not spared, and Verizon's probably of the ridiculous ones. It may be slightly more ridiculous than the others, but I think this was great to troll them back. They don't want to spend, and the guys that, as I've said before, the people who are offering more expensive internet often have a problem getting consumers to buy it, but then I don't know exactly what they're charging and what value-added proposition is there for that consumer, and whether, as Google's pointed out, if you're talking people who are in a rented community area, lower income, they're not going to pay the $250 to have Google Fiber come out because they're renting the place, right? So they've had some hurdles that they've been trying to deal with in the less rich areas of Kansas City, but they're still expanding, and they say that this sort of thing, obviously this wouldn't impact Google Fiber at all, and they've said that in general, net neutrality would not impact Google Fiber. So, Alan, what are your thoughts? I thought this was pretty funny and telling. And why the hell is this partisan issue?
I think it's funny and telling, but I think what's more interesting is that this really, in some ways, doesn't change much. All it does is it changes the definition of broadband. It doesn't change any requirements. It doesn't change much of anything.
If you were in a state that had a ban on municipal broadband and they had caveats in there like if X amount doesn't meet the FCC's criteria for broadband, this could impact some of those things, although he's going to hit that head on, I think, soon, and he's going to try to use the FCC's ability to cancel that.
That may be true, but I mean, considering that 80% of the market already meets these standards, the question is just, it basically amounts to this affects about 17% of consumers, which isn't a lot, but it's almost kind of like, okay, fine, let's actually create a definition that matches reality. And this is coming closer to creating a definition that matches reality.
I think the impetus for this, Alan, and then we'll go to Kevin, wasn't the impetus that they have to do a report to Congress on the state of broadband, and they had to define it before they could do said report? That was the impetus for this, right?
Something like that, yeah.
But I agree with you. It seems much ado about not much. And most of those people are probably in really bad areas that aren't going to get cable anyway. What do you think, Kevin?
I think this is just step one in several steps that they're going to push forward on trying to improve broadband in the U.S. That one interesting thing was that one of the commissioners, Jessica Rose in Warsaw, was actually wanting 100 megabits per second as the new threshold, and that was the compromise. 25 was the compromise on her end. I would have loved to have I would have loved to have seen that standard. But what I would have loved more as a compromise position is to have some kind of rolling increase in the broadband speed that's considered broadband. When you think of a cost of living increase, that helps in terms of minimum wage and things like that. If we could have some sort of cost of living increase that goes towards broadband as well, I think that would be super useful as well.
I think that, don't you agree though, Kevin, that 100 is as the minimum tier for broadband for the applications most people are currently using, which is Netflix, Hulu, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, email, browsing the web, that 25 is, if it's truly 25, even when the kids are home, for a single person, maybe a couple. I think that's a good minimum tier. I think 100 is, I mean, I only have 50 and I'm streaming 720p video. I have 10 up, 50 down. I think 100 is a bit of a stretch in 2015.
Well, if you're trying to aim for future-proofing some of this stuff, aiming for 100 and then setting some sort of a goal for companies to reach that 100, maybe they phase it in over a couple of years or something like that as a minimum, that would be really cool.
It's funny you use the term, goal and so forth, because, quoting one of the commissioners, talks about, saying the FCC is continually moving the goalposts so the standard can never be met. And yet 80% already meets this standard. It seems to me that this is...
They're full of shit.
It's meant to be aspirational. It's meant to say, look, we can keep improving things, and we should keep improving things.
Hi,
You
Pam.
look like you told me to say, Pam.
Aren't we like, I don't know, 25th or something like that in the world as far as internet speed?
Some embarrassing level, not that's probably close, yeah.
I mean, places like India and
India
parts
is a
of-
really, really bad example.
Well, to be fair, a lot of these are small, densely populated countries. They're the size of Virginia.
parts of India.
Mumbai.
Parts of India that have electricity somewhat reliably, yeah.
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 Dan, I hear that argument a lot, that it's a density issue.
Wait, really quick, the point I was going to make, I'm sorry, Alan. The point I was going to make is that I just upped my speed to, I think, 100 and 50 or 125, something like that. pretty blazing fast.
What carrier
telling
and at
you-
what cost?
Verizon FiOS, and it cost me $80 a month.
Wow. I have 50 and 10, and I pay $130. Comcast Business.
Well,
You're
so
getting screwed, Dan.
Oh yeah, because there's only one provider.
right now I'm running 117. Well, I'm just looking at my my status. So 117, and I'm not sure what's the upload. Okay, but it's 100 right now, 104 down, right? So, and of course I'm on wireless, but I have to tell you, my computer, I have to close everything to do this Hangout. I cannot do this Hangout with 4, what is it, gigs? Do you have gigs of RAM now?
Yeah.
4 gigs
Yeah,
of
you've
RAM?
definitely got a hardware issue there. But that's
Yeah,
impressive
so-
numbers to be on Wi-Fi and be in a Hangout where you're streaming, 3 streams of video to you, or 4, and to get that kind of speed. That's not bad.
Well, and I adjust the bandwidth manually up on the top. I adjust it down. So my picture's a little worse because if I don't, then I get error messages and I'm getting kicked out.
Mm.
It's one of the reasons I'm not doing the Hangouts as much, because it's really a pain in the ass. So, I'll get a new computer. But my point was, you can give the customer all this bandwidth, and if they don't have the hardware to operate it, or they don't have, or Chrome sucks, all your usage or whatever it is that's creating my problem, it's not going to matter. You can have all the speed you want. You have to have the hardware too. And how many people can afford to buy a brand new computer with 16, I think I saw one the other day that had 16 gigs of RAM or whatever,
You make a valid point there, Pam, but I think what we're also seeing is where this bandwidth ends up going is to things like a $35 Chromecast. And if you've got a $35 Chromecast and your 2 kids each have $35 Chromecasts, and at the same time they're doing a video chat through their phones while they're watching something, it adds up like that. And I think that's where you're seeing it going.
Yes, and I agree with you, but again, that's still, the Chromecast will only work if you have a good smartphone or a, rather, okay, when I say good, I just mean one that's newer than 3 or 4 years old, right? It has to run some version of Android that is supported by Chromecast, right? And then you have to have the TV has to have the port or whatever. If you look, I'm going to show you my messy room, but if you look, can you see it yet? The TV?
Oh my God!
That's a tube television.
Is that a Commodore 64 next to your television set?
No, it's my cable box.
Oh, okay. I thought it was a Commodore 64.
So yeah, so you see, there's not everyone has the newest, greatest, slim fit LED television. I'm just saying that you can throw bandwidth at people, but if they don't have the means to absorb it, then it's the people who are mining Bitcoin who are bitching about the freaking bandwidth, or who are pirating movies off, torrenting and whatever. I'm throwing around these words and phrases. I don't even know what I'm talking about because I don't use any of that stuff. But I've heard that
Pam's on other sites.
Yeah, Pornhub doesn't really suck the energy like some of these other things, So
To use an appropriate verb.
We do have to keep in mind, though, that how slowly some of these laws move. I mean, it's going to take years and years and years for even these changes to come into some kind of a reality into most people's lives. So, for them to push for this, there's the setting of the law, and then there's the years of actually building out the infrastructure, which we know is going to take for forever and a day. So to push for that, it won't even come to fruition for a lot of people for a long, long time. So for me, aiming for that means that it gives people time that if they want that option, then they can actually go for it. Because for a lot of people, they can't get that option now. So if they start moving these laws in that direction, then,
I don't know if it's so much that, Kevin. I think it's more an acknowledgement of the status quo. And the fact that you're right about the slow-moving Goliath that is the federal government. I mean, this went on for months, and they opened it up for comments. They probably spent millions and millions of dollars of staff time going through literally over 1 million comments, or millions, I don't know how many, only to come up with something that was predetermined anyway, because it's a partisan issue, which, again, escapes me as to why. And they were simply acknowledging, as Alan pointed out, that 80% of the people, we're going to settle at this limit that 80% of the people meet, that should be the minimum bar to say this is what broadband is, that 80% of people are already there. It just seemed like this colossal waste of time when it just should have been like two guys in a room. Okay, this is 80% of the people have this. Let's say this is the minimum. Let's sign off, vote 3-2. It's done, Why put on this show? And Obama doing the video, that was great, because a lot of people don't get this. Well, his was on net neutrality, but this just seems, a year, and we got a couple years of this, and then the new guy will come in, and can you believe the most likely scenario is Bush versus Clinton in 2016? That's a whole other thing. But anyway, anything else on broadband? Okay. What should Pam get? Would Pam benefit from a Chromebook, Alan? What should she get that's, not going to throw out break the bank, but would give her better hangouts?
I tend to lean towards Chromebooks, but I don't know, to be perfectly honest. I'm way past advising on hardware these days.
You certainly, Pam, if you could get a lower, correct me if I'm wrong, Alan, if she kept her existing hardware to do her like tabs, to look up stuff and read the topics, and then just got like a, $200 or $300 Chromebook to actually be in the Hangout on, right? Wouldn't that be a solution if she had the desktop space to do that, or the laps to do that, or whatever?
Potentially, but again, why would she spend $200 or $300 for something that just does video?
Because then she's kind of where she is now, right? She couldn't do what she wants to do on that device.
I mean, let me put it this way: video. All I can really say is I still prefer using my Chromebook for video over using my Mac, and there's a reason for that, and that's because it works better.
And the Mac was dramatically more expensive, right?
Yes.
See, I have two. I still split it up. And if you look Dan McDermott setup video, you'll find on YouTube, but I have a laptop that they're on, and then I have a desktop that I'm streaming to just split up the CPU and GPU bandwidth. Because Hangouts are notoriously, like I think Lotus Notes, how much CPU do you have? Okay, we'll take it. That's dating myself. Okay, next up is... let me see if we have any comments here real quick. And if you comment, we will read your comments, especially if you troll Alan. So Miles France says, let's all move to South Korea and get the fastest speeds. Let me see if we have any other comments. That's on YouTube. Let's see if we have any Google Plus comments. Question for the panel. What is Google's business? That's a damn good question.
Ooh, who asked that?
George, who else? Cozy. You kidding me? And like I said 2 years ago, all the cool people follow George Cozy in the Netherlands. That's a damn good question. What if Larry Page had to answer that question, how would he answer it?
Actually, it's a really good question because Larry Page did just ask that question.
It's like saying, what is Google Plus Week about? You got a minute?
And I assume this is at least part of what motivated George to ask this, is Larry... within the past couple of days, said something like, maybe it's time for Google to change its mission statement, but I don't know what I'm going to change it to. And Google's mission statement previously had been something about collect and organize the world's information, or organize and disseminate the world's information, or something like that. And Larry's now saying, well, maybe that's not what we're about anymore. And it's an interesting case, because Android really doesn't fit that model, doesn't fit that mission statement very well, and Android is one of the biggest components about Google these days. So I don't know, what should Google's mission statement be? And I think it's more than just information now. I think it's about bringing technology to the world.
It's almost like a Star Trek, to explore strange new worlds. It's kind of like an open-ended book, like they're in a ship and they're just going to go out there and see what they find and see what works and who's nice and who's mean. And it's kind of a Star Trek company, really, except they're not in space yet. Although they just I can't say that. They just invested $1 billion in Tesla, or in the process of that, or in SpaceX, excuse me.
So Pam, what do you think Google's mission statement should be?
I always hear the theme from Pinky and the Brain.
Excellent.
Yeah, I try to take over the world. I mean, that really kind of seems like what they're doing. They're investing in a space company. They got a little bit of alternative energy over here, and they got the smartphones, and now they're going to be doing, you're going to be able to buy service from Google. They got little balloons in the air, the self-driving cars. They're like the Sybil of business. They've got 16 personalities, and which one's going to win? I don't know.
Kevin?
I wonder if they need to concentrate. I worry that they would talk about the actual saying of the business themselves, but I'm worried that they're not talking to themselves enough. So for me, I wouldn't even worry so much about I wouldn't even worry so much about what they're saying to the outside world. I would worry more about what they're saying to each other. So before I would even think about changing the statement of what they send out to the world, figure out internally what they can do with the components that they have now. And so how can they have those talk to each other?
So Kevin brings up a really, really good point. Companies that are huge and companies that are globally spread have intrinsic issues with communication, optimization,
silos.
Yeah,
it's more than that. It's like vision. Look, there's each little area, each site has basically their own corporate culture, their own, whether it's stated or not, their own mission statement, their own sense of importance, right? And they start to, and because I see this, right? So they start to compete against each other,
especially when they've been acquired, right?
It's them. It's all the corporate bad guys, and the guys in corporate think that they really have a reign on things, and the truth is they don't.
Especially
right?
when they've been acquired. That's how a lot of these companies grow. Like Nest.
Right.
Nest probably has a completely different culture from Google.
Right. And we, the company I work for has been purchased 3 or 4 times. We've bought 5 or 6 different companies, and we very much have an us against them mentality. And when it's global, it's even worse. You have all these sites around the world, and it's very hard to have a cohesive message and to have cohesive teams that talk amongst other teams in order to streamline and make their products elegant. There's an awful lot of infighting that seems to be going on, where one product is kind of competing with the other product, and it's going to be interesting. They're going to have to pull their shit together, that's for sure.
Question, Pam: is it a turf war, or a combination of these things? Is it competition for the CEO and the board's attention to get mentioned in that earnings call, your division, and then that means you're going to get the resources and the bragging rights in the next few quarters, right?
Well, it's not only that, but each division in each section or whatever has goals that they have to meet, and they might or might not align with the goals of a different department or a different site, and so yeah, there's competition for a set bunch of money, resources, and but bragging rights, so to speak, because if you offer a brilliant product at the end of the day, you know, when your timeline or your project is up or whatever, and you have a brilliant product, you're going to be able to basically dictate your next project.
Okay,
right?
Along this same line, let me ask you to look back at when talk about a clash of culture and a clash of agendas, when the Google Plus agenda conflicted with the YouTube agenda, and the Google Plus comment system was put to much fanfare on YouTube. And is that a good example of a clash of agendas within the same corporate umbrella? And how do you look back on that in retrospect?
Well, in the case of YouTube, YouTube was an acquisition, right? So the customer base and the people working on YouTube or whatever were already established, and then Google comes in and you know, they've got this different mindset and maybe different goals and a different mission and all this other stuff, and the truth is, you know, they kind of force their will on both the customers, and when I say the customers, I mean the YouTube video uploaders, not the people who are watching, and the watchers, right, the commenters, and also the YouTube employees who were used to doing things a certain way, and then all of a sudden we're basically required to change, and you know, even the terms of service changed, right?
It became a universal terms of service for all of Google products. Although in Europe,
right.
I'm guessing we're going to see a change there.
Right, but that kind of clash or whatever is really common, and it does create a lot of, you know, subtle conflict. And of course, to the outside world, everything's wonderful, and Google's a great place to work, and everybody loves Google. But the truth is there's a lot of resentment too. You know, a lot of ex-employees have spoken about, you know, some of the things that they didn't like, and you know, that's very, very common, especially in a huge company. So yeah, they don't get to have their way anymore. It sucks. It really does. I mean, we just went through another database switch. So we went from Lotus Notes, which, you know, I finally got used to after 5 years, to Outlook 13 or whatever that is, Microsoft again. You know, switched right in the middle of the week. You know, I come to work, it's like, oh, say goodbye to Lotus. You know, it's just stuff like that, and that's dictated by corporate. We had no say in that.
Any other thoughts on this? And then we got a good comment from Captain Euro.
It would be interesting if the reason to change that motto would be not to tell the world, but to fix those internal silos. Other than that, that's it.
Okay, Captain Euro says, I wouldn't worry on a previous topic about the FCC 3-2 decision to redefine broadband as 25 down and 3 up from the previous, which was what, 6 and 1 or something crazy. And we said, I wouldn't worry too much about consumer broadband speeds abroad because almost every major IT company is American. That's a point. But another point is, here we're saying, like, imagine what we can create, what the developers like Alan and Cadeas and others can create if we had gigabit and there was a demand for such things. However, that's kind of arrogant to say because there is really fast internet in other countries, and who's to say that the U.S. is the only company that can innovate in tech? That's ridiculous. So isn't this sort of a problem that will fix itself? In other words, let's say YouTube just came on the scene today, or Netflix or Amazon Prime, and then other countries are being able to enjoy the benefits of this video streaming thing, and we're all still stuck in dial-up. And that's not a crazy analogy because that's, we weren't in dial-up too many years ago. We were. So then we see really cool videos and reviews of people using this neat product, and we can't get it because our internet sucks. And then the key is, once there's a demand, they're going to meet they're going to provide it because they're going to be forced to, because nobody wants their phone blown up by angry consumers. So right now they're delivering what your average Joe six-pack wants. He wants Facebook, he wants YouTube, he wants porn and Chrome or Internet Explorer, and he wants email. And most people have internet that's adequate for that, because if not, they blow up the Comcast 800 number. So isn't this going to kind of fix itself, you think? Or is that crazy, Kevin?
I don't think it's going to fix itself. We need legislation. Bottom line.
So now we're back to who was that? Who's that crazy Senator Ted Cruz? He said, "This is Obamacare for the internet." Your favorite guy, right? He's real big in Atlanta, isn't he?
Wow. Yeah, he used to be. Never mind.
Any other thoughts on this? That was a great question from George. I love George Cozy. Some people smoke, some drink. George ponders. He doesn't post all the time. He's like the E.F. Hutton commercial. When E.F. Hutton talks, people listen. George, he didn't post all the time, but then when he does, it's a moment. Thank you, George, as always, for your insightful question. A couple other things. Bruce Turner. We're still going, by the way, Bruce, if you want to pop in. Bruce says, and this from someone who is not a Microsoft fan, I love Linux and Chrome OS, but competition is heating up over which will only be better for the consumer. He says, interesting days are ahead, as I get the feeling that Microsoft is like a sleeping giant that is waking up to their own vision, finally. Google's mission, says Dean Barnett, knowledge and the generation thereof. Bruce Turner says, Chromebooks rock. I think I'm getting YouTube comments en masse in spurts, if that makes any sense. And I see my little Twitter thing here. Oh, Brad's watching. Shout out to Brad, techwebcast.info. It's a great show out of Australia. Any other comments here on this before we go to the hot new tech gadget at Walmart? All right, next up is your grandma's Roku. This is the Voodoo Spark. It's $25. It's basically a dongle, but it comes with a remote control. It's kind of neat. The remote control, physically, it's kind of neat. This compares to Chrome. This is going to be sold at Walmart. Voodoo, I guess, is owned by Walmart, and it's a service where you can rent or buy movies and stuff like that. So they've got like a real simple, basic remote control, which is cool. And I'm going to ask Alan in a minute if that's something that could be done for the Chromecast. Is that something you could get for like your grandma to use if she doesn't have a smartphone? And wouldn't that be a neat app if that's even technically possible? The downside here...
No and no.
The answer is no? What'd you say?
The answer is no, you can't just get a remote control for a Chromecast, and no, you wouldn't want one.
Okay. Because there is a demand for people who are using feature phones. So anyway, the Voodoo Spark is $25, which compares to, I guess, $35 for Chromecast, and I think that the Amazon Fire one, which is also fairly proprietary, but it has more apps, is $40. And this
I was
one
going to
has no
say,
apps.
the Amazon Fire isn't even close to proprietary the way this thing is. The The notable feature about this is the price. The unnotable, really sucks feature about this is that it's locked to one and exactly one streaming service, and that would be the Vudu streaming service. This is crap.
It's such disappointing crap too, because they had an opportunity to really undercut in terms of price, but they were so focused on being cheap that they never went out and actually did the one thing that they needed to do, which is add real apps to the service as well. You know, having one service when there's another product that's on the market that's just $10 more, and it can handle just about everything that's out there now that's streaming. You know, they'll sell because it's Walmart, and Walmart knows how to sell stuff, and Google doesn't really know how to sell. But Chromecast has been selling a lot despite Google. And so there's a lot of Chromecasts out there, enough that people understand that there's something that they can plug into their TV and get a bunch of services, and then they look at this thing and think, well, okay, I'm saving money, yeah, but I can only do one thing?
Do you know that your camera's off, Kevin?
Oh, my camera is off right now?
Yeah. And we don't even have your face with the circle. We just have a straight-up black screen.
Oh, on my end, my mic is unmuted and my camera is on.
Why don't you try muting your camera and then unmuting it and see if that works?
Okay.
Okay, now we got your face anyway, your smiling face.
Okay, and now I'm turning it on. Can you see me now?
I cannot. Yep, I can see you. Go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, yeah, it's such a missed opportunity, because they really, if they had something close to the equivalent apps that the Chromecast has, even if they don't have everything, if they had some, and it was $10 lower, and it's coming from a retailer who knows how to sell stuff, then, you know, there might be some kind of competition there. But, you know, just throwing crap out there like that,
well, let me say, but hang on. Let's be fair here. This article says Walmart goes after Chromecast because it looks like a Chromecast and it streams video. But is that necessarily what Walmart's doing? What Walmart has here is a product that if you use Vudu, this is a way you can use Vudu on your non-smart television, right?
No, Dan, that's not what Walmart has here. What Walmart has here is a streaming video stick. Now, the fact that it only supports Vudu is not necessarily something they're going to be pushing. This isn't for Vudu people. This is for people who don't know any better.
Well, it's also for Vudu people, I think. I think that this is, if you use Vudu, whoever you are out there, for people who use Vudu, that now you don't have to just use it on your smartphone or your computer. You can also use Vudu on that TV in the living room that your wife won't let you run any wires to.
No, Dan, and here's why. You can use Vudu on a Chromecast.
Yeah.
For only $10 more, you can get Vudu plus YouTube
Netflix,
plus Netflix,
Amazon Prime, everything. Yeah.
Plus, you can't get Amazon Prime. Amazon won't let you.
Even people who don't understand this stuff, they understand Netflix at this point. If they have some kind of stick that they can stick in their TV and they can't apply the word Netflix to it, people are going to start asking questions just because of that.
And I agree, it's a little deceptive.
It does what it says it's going to do, right? It plays Vudu on your dumb TV. Like if your TV, for example, except it doesn't work on Pam's TV.
Exactly.
Your 4x3 beast with the Commodore 64.
Yeah, and it weighs a ton too. How do I put this? There's a great possibility that this might take advantage of people who may not be as technical savvy as maybe they need to be in order to make the decision to buy it. Right? That's all.
Surely you're not referring to Walmart customers as
Suckering you in.
I'm just.
Look, frankly, I don't know if I've ever used Vudu. I have no need to use Vudu. I mean, there's more crap on Netflix and Amazon Prime, and I have cable television.
Tonight's the first I've ever heard of Voodoo. So yeah.
But here's the deal: if you use Voodoo, and if you have a smart TV or a non-smart TV, and you want to watch your Voodoo vids on that television in the living room, then this is not a bad value. It's $25. You get a remote control. You get a dongle.
And and what Alan is saying is they're not marketing it that way. They're not saying if you use Voodoo and you have a TV that can take a USB and
HDMI.
or
Yeah,
HDMI.
Alan's correct. Chrome. If you're looking for this solution, obviously spend $10 more or wait for it to
Say
go
that
on
again,
sale
Dan?
and get the Chromecast. Correct. But this one says Voodoo written all over it. Maybe
What
they
did
should
you
just
start
sell.
that comment with, Dan?
Huh? Oh, I
What did you
said
start that comment with?
Alan was like Fonzie. So anyway, yeah, but they're getting their brand on something. It has a remote control, which is cool. So, yeah, this is a piece of shit. Don't get it. All right, next up is see if we have any comments here. Okay, so this would be called Dead Air, if I'm not mistaken. All right, next up is Bill Gates is worried about artificial intelligence too. This goes on the heels of, I think, Elon Musk, who basically takes a dump in its news on Twitter. Anything he says is big news. He said he was scared about artificial intelligence, think Terminator movie. And then the guy who's featured in the recent movie who's wrote the Brief History of Time, whose name escapes me because I...
Hawking's.
Who?
Stephen Hawking's.
Stephen Hawking also expressed a concern about artificial intelligence. And I think the one example I've seen is they had some like really small, tiny robots or whatever, and they were supposed to feed on this power, but they began hoarding the power, not being told to do it. That's the first example I've seen of, like, on a very small scale, artificial intelligence machines going awry. But we all know the story from the Terminator movies, which was great, about machines taking over the world and stuff. So this is just the latest. Any thoughts on this? I mean, Bill Gates is no dumbass, despite his phones, which don't suck. They're just not adopted widely. Go ahead, Kevin.
I think the only thing that he was, the only thing I would be worried about is the unintended consequences. Not in terms of, malevolent, intelligent, coming out of some kind of machine, but just some automated process that just starts running, and it seems like the best decision at the time, but something goes wrong with that. But honestly, I'm with the other people who are not that worried. I'm not that worried. Maybe I'm just clueless, but I think it'll be okay.
I'll see you at the revolution.
I need a Jeep and a dog. That's it. I have everything else.
Yeah, I'm not too worried. I want to see some more. I want to get us right to the edge. That's what I want to take us right. So half of my foot is sticking off the precipice, and then maybe I'll start worrying a little bit. About 5 seconds before the machine gets self-intelligence, self-awareness. Maybe then I'll worry, and then I'll have 5 seconds where I can say someone was right.
Alan, do you live in constant fear of artificial intelligence taking over the world and machines that can learn and grow and adapt, killing us all?
Given the number of bugs that are routinely found in software these days, not even close. Let's face it.
Well, as I say, that would make me more nervous. Because some dumbass is going to write some code, and then we'll be all up in the Terminator.
No, the problem is you're going to get Arnold Schwarzenegger tripping over his shoelaces. That's the equivalent of artificial intelligence with software bugs.
Alan, could you look up that ever so slightly related quote that you shared with us earlier about Watson? That is slightly.
This is actually more relevant to the fact that IBM is now 3 years running losing money. So it's more related to our earlier one. But it was, let me see if I can get it again quickly. It was a quote by, I'll let you know it.
IBM, just while we're waiting for Alan, IBM's Watson is a
Kevin
supercomputer that's existed
Right.
for quite some time.
So it's a quote by Kevin Hillstrom, who was talking about the analytic services that IBM is now providing. IBM has been widely touting their Watson system, which we all saw, which is notable because Kevin Jennings, Jeopardy star, said he welcomed our robot overlords as he lost to it on Jeopardy. They've been pushing this as kind of a solution to a data analysis systems, and talking about how data analysis with Watson can help your company make more money. And his comment is, if IBM Watson can find hidden correlations that help your business, then why can't IBM Watson stem a 3-year sales drop at IBM? And I think that really says it all. So if our systems are that great, why can't they actually help us?
Seems a logical question. You wouldn't even need George Cozy to come up with that one.
Well, maybe saving IBM is illogical.
I
In
think
which
it's
case,
possible.
Pam wears her hair out tonight to hide her Vulcan ears. Okay, so we're not all in constant fear of AI, but probably should keep an eye on it. All right, next up is from Smithsonian.com. This is a wonderful magazine put out by the Smithsonian, and this is an article. This is actually the most interesting thing here tonight, really, but it's not really tech. I mean, it's pretty old. So
Get to it, Dan.
Did fishermen find evidence of an unknown group of primitive humans? A fossilized jawbone pulled from the seafloor near Taiwan may be from an ancient type of hominin new to science. So Live Science reports that a fossilized jawbone discovered in a fishing net off the western coast of Taiwan may belong to a previously unknown form of archaic human who once dwelled in Asia. The lower right mandible, complete with short row of thick teeth, is thought to be from a hominin that lived between 10,000 and 190,000 years ago. It's a pretty wide net there. So apparently they found another specimen. They just thought it was an oddity, but then they've now found one with similarities, and it wasn't close enough to be considered like a relative or something. So I guess there was Homo erectus, and there was the Neanderthal, which are the two famous ones, and we coexisted with them, and then apparently we won. And I swear to God, I think we definitely inbred with the Neanderthals. I still see people, who are like scary, could beat me up. Not that that's saying a lot. But does this sound plausible? And they concede more work needs to be done. But I just think all this stuff's fascinating. I'm so curious about what caused the Neanderthal to go out. I have to imagine it was that we killed them all. There was some kind of war or something, or just little battles here and there. It was competition for food or what have you. Because they were pretty badass. They were short, but they were stocky and much stronger than the Homo sapien, which is what we are. And I think that there's Neanderthal DNA in a lot of humans today. I think that that's kind of acknowledged now. And I recommend, everyone speed reads this article, which isn't that long, so you guys can read it yourselves as well. But Smithsonian is a wonderful magazine. It's a wonderful website. And their mission is great. It said to look at, to publish, to talk about the things that we're currently investigating in our museums, and to talk about things that we ought to be thinking about. It's a pretty wide berth. Not unlike the previous question George posed about Google. So, Alan, are you at a point where you could weigh in?
There's nothing to say about this.
I don't know. They found a skull, Taiwan.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I think anthropology is fascinating, but I'm not even sure that this really had all that much to say besides the fact that they found yet another fossilized remain, and that it points to continued information about how various humanoid species existed at the same time. There's it's vaguely interesting, but doesn't seem earth-shattering to me.
What about the other question about? Do you have a theory, a personal theory? Have you heard anything about what the theory du jour is about why there are no more holy bred Neanderthals or Homo erectus? I'm not really up on it, to be honest. I mean, I would imagine we killed them all because we had superior brains, and even though they were physically stronger.
What?
Do you think we just killed them off in battles, or what?
I have no strong evidence one way or the other at this point. I mean, it's clear that evolutionarily Homo erectus survived, although exactly what traits caused it to do so aren't entirely clear to me.
Is Homo sapien, which is what we are, is that a Homo erectus, or is that a separate species?
My understanding, and I'm perfectly willing to be wrong on this one because I have not studied anthropology in quite some time, was that Homo sapiens a descender of Homo erectus.
Are we a descender of the Neanderthal, or?
No.
Okay, so that was a side offshoot.
We are not a direct descendant of.
So that's a great uncle or whatever. So we're all
It's a different evolutionary branch.
okay. Kevin or Pam, any thoughts on this? I love it when you guys speculate
I point
wildly
out
and get
that
us.
Pam is the biologist of us, not me.
Yeah, Pam's actually a functioning scientist.
Yeah, but I didn't study anthropology. Evolutionary biology is not my forte at all.
Okay.
Sorry.
Any thoughts?
And I point out that the connection between this and our previous story is the previous story is about genetic algorithms, and this one is about genetics. Next story, Dan.
Kevin, you didn't want to get in trouble on this like me and Alan?
I don't have anything to add.
I didn't want to get in trouble on this one either. You called me on the carpet.
Yeah, I totally called you out because Alan knows.
And he knew more than I did about ancient humanoids.
Alan met a guy in a bar who read a book on anthropology once, so obviously he's the go-to. He's our, consultant.
I'm impressed. I'm impressed almost every week by Alan. Actually,
Okay, so next up is our other program called Our Android Week, and that's coming up every Monday. It's coming up this Monday, in fact, and that is at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Pacific Time. So there's a couple interesting stories that we're probably going to be discussing on Monday. One is that Microsoft is investing a bunch of money in Cyanogen, which is basically they take the raw code for Android put out by Google, and then they make a side-loaded version, and it necessarily doesn't have the Play Store and things like that, and Google doesn't have control over it.
No, it does have the Play Store.
It does, but it's correct that they don't have control over it.
They don't have control over Samsung's version of Android either, or Motorola's version of Android either.
Is what they've done with the Kindle Fire a fair analogy, or is that so much of an offshoot that it barely resembles? I mean,
It's a close analogy. I mean, what basically Cyanogen Mod is it takes stock Android and adds additional features to it, and sometimes cleans it up and makes other improvements to it. What Cyanogen has done, since they've become a company, is sell their version of Android to other phone manufacturers who want these additional features. And now it sounds like Microsoft is getting in their camp because they want to have some control over Android. Cyanogen Well, we'll be talking about this more Monday. There's a lot of intrigue to it, and we'll be talking about it Monday.
Quick comment here. Aaron Weathersby, the singularity should be here in 10 years. We will see soon enough. I think that's related to our artificial intelligence discussion, I guess. And then I see Vic is posting again, and from George Cozy. The question is, why should I have a smart TV and a powerful computer in the same house? Shouldn't I have a powerful computer and several sizes of dumb monitors spread around the house? Yeah.
I think the question's a loaded question. I think what we're going to see, and I've said this multiple times on this show, is we're going to see, we've got computers and everything. We're going to see more and more computers and more of everything. So we'll be seeing these things having the right form factor, doing the right things at the right time in the right ways. So you're not going to have, so you'll have your radio with the wake-up alarm to it, and that's just going to be a computer that's networked to everything else. You'll have the coffee pot that is networked that will be a coffee pot. It doesn't need to be the coffee pot that plays music as well. So we'll be seeing this more and more, and I think that the TV is the first battleground for it.
Okay, and our other topic coming up Monday, more cards coming to Google Now. I looked at some of them, Alan. They're impressive. Google Now is that thing in the Google app and on other devices that basically looks at your data and presents you with cards. Things like if you go to Gmail and you map, if you got an email saying your flight takes off tomorrow at noon, then you're going to get a Google Now card checking to see if your flight's on time or what the weather might be in that destination town, that sort of thing. If Craig and I are discussing a specific camera, the new Sony whatever, then I might get a Google Now card about that if that's on sale, that sort of thing. So there's some new cards added, and I guess they're going to present the information to you based on your Google searches, your Chrome searches, that sort of thing, and your conversations, but they're not going to share that information with the company providing the data.
No.
So go ahead, Alan. What is this? Just a few more cards, or is this a big deal?
The quick big deal about this, and we'll be covering this extensively on Monday because it's a huge deal, is that previously all of the knowledge that came out of Google cards, in the Google Now cards, came from other Google products, various one way or another. Now, some of those cards are going to be generated by other applications. So, for example...
Outside of Google?
Outside of Google. So, for example, Lyft is now able to provide information in Google Now cards. So if it discovers it's at whatever, if you're out on the town, there can now be a Lyft card that tells you, hey, here's how much it'll cost you to get home, and there's a car that's 5 minutes away, touch here to get that car.
Quick question. Am I accurate that this is a one-way pipe, so Lyft doesn't know that Alan is getting ready to drive to the Bronx? They're giving the information, but they don't know that it's Alan Furstenberg who's getting ready to do that.
Probably not. I haven't looked at details about what they're talking about, but there's got to be some user knowledge here, because some of it are things like, I believe Spotify is one of them, and it's providing information on your playlist.
Because I think the way that they did it is sort of like if I run ads, let's say I run ads saying buy whatever. I don't necessarily know what websites it's necessarily showing up on. I don't know anything until someone engages in a transaction. Then you'd know, of course.
You're so confusing issues. It's not even funny, Dan.
No, because a lot of people are concerned because the whole benefit of Google Now is that they're scroogling me, and I like that, and they give me relevant information that I want to know based on my activity. But now they're sharing it with third parties, or at least I'm getting data from third parties, right?
That's the important
concern.
part, is that they're getting data from third parties.
So it's still going through Google, so Lyft doesn't know unless I were to book a ride, then obviously they would know. But if it's just showing up on my phone, they don't know that Dan McDermott was, interested in this topic or whatever.
Then how the hell do you think Spotify knows?
That's a direct relationship with Spotify, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know
Dan,
about
you're
this.
totally confusing the issue, I think.
I don't think so.
I turn off all that stuff, and so I don't think this new Google Now is going to help me at all. I don't want Google mining my stuff to show me relevant ads, so I get the generic ads. I don't turn on my location for any of these other apps, and I'm not going to be doing that. The only application that uses my actual location is Google Maps. But I have it turned off for anything outside of that. So, the new Google Now for me is going to be completely useless because I don't want. I get ads enough. I'm just marketed to death. If I want something, I'll Google it. But I don't want that now. I've done this, right? So I looked up Shaquille O'Neal. I was having a conversation with somebody, right? And I look up Shaquille O'Neal, found out how old he was and how tall he was. And now, Google Now is giving me Shaquille O'Neal news, I don't care. I only wanted him one time. I only wanted to see how tall he was and how old he was. I never, ever, ever want to see another news story about him. I don't care about him. It's the same with Kim Kardashian. I looked up Kim Kardashian for some conversation, argument, or whatever I was having on the internet, and I went to go check a fact, and then I start getting, my God, that woman is in the news all the time, and I start getting everything about her, it's like, stop, turn it off. I don't know. I must be the atypical consumer, but I just don't want to be bombarded with all things Kardashian. I just don't.
Fortunately, I've got no idea who you're talking about. We'll be talking about this more on Monday, but let me just make something perfectly clear. I am right, and Dan is that other thing.
I totally disagree. The point I was making is,
Dan,
and I think Google.
Dan,
No,
read
I'm not.
the
I'm
article you linked, and it will tell you you're wrong.
I was asking, how can you be wrong when you ask a question?
You're making statements.
No, I was asking a question. I said, "Is this the case?" Because there's a concern. The whole deal was, I trust Google. Let me get through this. This will be 15 seconds. The whole deal was, Google knows everything I do online. I have no problem with that, and Google provides me with a product that Google Now, which gives me relevant news stories, website updates, etc., the weather, etc. They look at your Gmail and they know, like, I'm driving to New York to punch you in the face, and they'll give me a thing about the weather and where to buy boxing gloves or what have you. Obviously, I'm joking. So my question was, is this, now that all of a sudden they're introducing third-party data, does this mean that Lyft knows, or any of these other, The Guardian knows what I'm interested in, or that they're just getting the data from a pipe from Lyft or The Guardian, and then they're going to deliver it themselves, and then naturally if I subscribe to The Guardian or I book a ride with Lyft, then obviously they would know information about me. But I was just wondering if this is, I was wondering about that concern that some folks will say that I could care less about, but there will be a concern. Does this mean that my search history and all the things that Google Now uses to come up with relevant things and cards is now going to be provided to these third parties? That was the question and the concern that I was raising. And I think that's very relevant.
72 seconds.
So you ignored everything I said. This is
No,
not a
I
conversation. It's
listened
dual
to everything
monologues.
you said.
No,
Listen to everything you said. The reason
I
why
don't-
you're wrong is because that's not what these third-party apps are doing. They're not taking Google search inputs.
no, that's not what he asked.
Yes, it is. That's exactly what
No.
he asked.
He asked if Google was acting as a proxy, like a go-between between an app and you, to protect your privacy but still get you the relevant information you need from that third-party app.
Which
Isn't
is
that
the
what
best,
you asked?
Yeah, that's the best of both worlds, where I still get the information, but I want this to be a wide open API to a degree, but I want them to provide all the information about all the flights. Like Priceline could deliver all the information about all the flights to Google, and then Google parses it out, and they only know that I even exist once I click to buy a flight, and then of course they'd have to know, my Visa card and stuff like that. I'm just asking that question because I think that's going to be a concern here. I think a lot of people are going to be like, wait a minute, Alan.
What, you want me to say for the 5th time that you're wrong? You're wrong. You really don't understand what the fuck this is about.
That's why I'm asking
Just
you.
go read the fucking article, and we'll talk about it on Monday.
Alan's
Okay.
right.
Thank you.
And on Monday, there'll be more yelling and screaming, pulling of hair, gnashing of teeth from my good friend Alan Furstenberg.
But that's because Dan still won't have read the fucking article on Monday.
I read the article. Obviously, I didn't read it well enough, I guess. All right, so Pam Adger, how was your Google Plus week?
Actually, I had a migraine most of the week. It was miserable. Thanks for asking.
Okay. All right. So that settles that. Kevin Bryan, how was your Google Plus week? Oh, we're not at all jealous of you, Mr. Google Fiber guy.
That is the big news for Atlanta and as a whole. This week they made the official announcement. They made they put it out in the local papers, in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, and the Marietta Daily Journal, and several others, that Atlanta is now on track to officially get Google Fiber, and it's coming to 8 cities. It's going to actually, it's interesting because in the case of Kansas City, they went to just a bunch of cities that were kind of on the lower economic scale, and they've done a larger spread in Atlanta. The 8 cities, in case anyone is wondering, in the Atlanta area that are getting Google Fiber are Sandy Springs, Avondale Estates, Brookhaven, Decatur, Smyrna, Hapeville, College Park, and East Point. There's the 2 surprises for me in the area were College Park. I'm sorry, what?
Yep. College East Point, right?
What? Yeah, College Park and East Point is the hood. DAHOOD. The hood. For real.
Rodney's mom lives in East Point. just down from God, what's that mall? Greenbrier.
Oh, okay. That is the hood. If anyone follows hip hop, Outkast comes from East Point. Wow, the fact that they're wiring that up. Thank goodness it's not like Copper, because that would get taken like Liam Neeson's daughter. It would get took. But okay, but they're actually doing a large spread of neighborhoods. There's like medium type neighborhoods like Decatur and Smyrna and Hapeville. Then there's some above average neighborhoods like Avondale Estates and Brookhaven. But it's also coming to Sandy Springs, and that's a big deal because that's a neighborhood that definitely has above average income, and a lot of interest in that area will be coming for Google Fiber. That one's going to be the one to really watch because Sandy Springs is pretty close to the big tech hotbed city in the Atlanta area, which is Alpharetta. Sandy Springs is close to Alpharetta, and so absolutely, that's going to be a big interest in Sandy Springs. But really, all over Atlanta, people are going to be pretty interested in signing up. I think they're going to do pretty well in their sign-ups. As far as myself, I am not in an area that would be getting Google Fiber, but I am looking forward to competition coming for Comcast, which is a big place in the area. And hopefully they will start changing some of their prices and practices, such as changing the names on customers' bills, because that is a side issue that is starting to come up as well, where people have been getting bills where their names have gotten changed to something less than cordial. So hopefully the competition from Google Fiber will change some of those practices from the competition as well, and also in terms of prices. That's it from me.
Alan Furstenberg, how was your Google Plus week?
Okay, I guess. Busy, stressful, hectic. Not too bad.
You wouldn't know. That was a dig just then.
How was your Google Plus week, Dan?
It's good. I'm reading the article now, again. And apparently, just to answer, I don't know why you just didn't say that it only would show up like the Airbnb app if you have the Airbnb app on your phone and you have the Google app, then it would show up. So anyway, my Google Plus week was good. It was less eventful than last week when I had a bunch of kids here. One of them was threatening someone on Facebook, logged in as me, and
You know, Dan, I'm going to echo a question that I know Pam asked you earlier today. How did they sucker you into that?
obviously it's friends of the family, right? I mean, they're friends of mine, so I know the kids, and but yeah, that was obviously.
Dan, I don't let my
should've-
son use my account.
Keep in mind, Alan, Dan is like Wu-Tang. Dan is for the children. Wu-Tang
Well,
is for the
wait.
children.
Not
And so
anymore.
Dan is for the children.
Well,
Not
wait
anymore.
a minute. Dan has 3 phones that I know of, right? And maybe a tablet.
Yeah.
He could have done a factory reset and handed him one of the tablets or phones to mess with, right?
Well, the kids were on the computer and stuff, and I just said, like, I just stick them in, like, use Firefox or incognito or something, so that I'm totally not logged in at all. The one kid wanted to use the phone. I should have set up a separate account, but I was busy because when you have 4 kids in your house, you're basically cooking and cleaning constantly, doing dishes or giving them food. I've never seen anybody eat like this. It's unbelievable. So it just slipped my mind, and then like this guy just said, "Don't ever threaten me again." And I looked at the thing, and it was like really low quality attempt at ebonics from this little 14-year-old kid, and I couldn't really understand what it was, but apparently it was threatening in tone. And the guy and then he emailed the screen capture to my 76-year-old parents and my niece and my uncle.
I want to know how you got hoodwinked into watching 4 kids. You don't even have kids.
It was a delightful and traumatic experience. Like Hurricane Katrina, it's actually beautiful in a way, right? Is that? Look at that building as it just picks it right up. Wow. So, oh my God. So yeah, I'm establishing new rules. But see, normally when you first are, supervising children, and I'm a former high school teacher, right? So I've experienced, but not at home, and 4 of them. Normally they're introduced little, right? They're babies, and then you kind of learn as you go. But when they're already 14, 9 to 16, but the 14-year-old is the one who went on Facebook and threatened this person. And I was answering all these things like, "No, I'm not really interested in you, 15-year-old. I'm sorry. This kid was using, he's gone now." But it was funny in a way until the threatening thing happened. That wasn't cool. So, lesson learned. All right, so anyway, we have 2 programs. Our Android Week, which is every Monday at 9 p.m. Eastern, where Alan and I will yell and scream at each other again. I know you're all looking forward to that. And then this program is every Friday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific, where we discuss Google Plus News, Google News, and the various silos owned by Google News, and other tech stuff, and fossilized hominids, erectuses, whatever. Anyway, thank you all for watching. We really appreciate it. I'm Dan McDermott. I'll be on the radio tomorrow on the Virginia Talk Radio Network. You can go to the website, virginiatalkradionetwork.com, and that's at 11:07 a.m. Eastern in the morning, right? A.m. And 8:07 a.m. Eastern Saturday morning, tomorrow morning, every week. And I'm discussing Mitt Romney's withdrawal from the Republican nomination for president, and this seriously diminishes his chances of winning the nomination, as a CBS commentator pointed out. And then I'm also discussing something else which escapes me. I can't remember.
And you can't put one over those CBS guys.
I know it was Dickerson, John Dickerson. He's really funny. So anyway, thank you all. Any final thoughts here? Alan and I are going to continue our bromance Monday night. All right, y'all. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. We'll see you next time. Until then, have an excellent, awesome, badass Google Plus week.